Hi, my name is Aidan Beery, and I'm a second-year student at Oregon State University Cascades. Today, I'll be presenting on the use of online social media commentary for the prediction of a song's emotive qualities. Evaluating a song's affective qualities is a time-consuming, expensive process. Traditional methods rely on the use of human annotators to manually rate a sample of music. The advent of crowdsourcing platforms like Amazon Mechanical Turk has made this process somewhat easier. However, conducting a survey to gather a statistically significant number of annotations can be costly. If one were able to train an intelligent model to predict the emotive qualities of a song, it could prove beneficial to further research in music information retrieval. But to do that would require finding sources for listener sentiment without explicitly asking people to describe their feelings in a survey. Our hypothesis is that the conversations people have on social media about a piece of music contain semantic information, indicating how that listener felt about that song, and those comments could be used to predict music emotion. In order to test this, we use Reddit as our social media platform of choice. Reddit is known for having many independent subcommunities of varying interests, including many music-specific discussion boards. We query Reddit for a given artist name and song title, and select the 10 posts which are most popular as determined by Reddit's search API. Then, we pull every comment from those 10 posts and use that as our search data for a given song. For this text data, we want to create features to be used by a machine learning algorithm to attempt to predict the song's valence and arousal. For the purpose of music emotion modeling, valence can be thought of as a measure of positivity, and arousal is a measure of energy. If the song were to be high valence and high arousal, it would be joyful, exciting, and happy. Negative arousal and negative valence would indicate that that song is depressing, low energy, and melancholy. Instead of feeding this text data directly into a model, we first process it to generate some features indicating the sentiment of a given set of comments for a song. We use datasets of single-word phrases with annotated values indicating the valence, arousal, and sentiment of that word. By finding the occurrences of these words with known emotive values in our comments, we can find the average and variance in affect for the comments, which we then use as our features. We need a list of songs to use for our feature generation task. For this experiment, we chose to use the AMG 1608 dataset, as well as the Deezer song list. AMG 1608 is a subset of the AllMusic Guide, a catalog of songs used as a reference by hobbyists. These songs were annotated by 665 annotators, most using the Amazon Mechanical Turk crowdsourcing platform. Annotators were given 13 samples, each roughly 30 seconds long. They were asked to plot the song on a valence arousal graph relative to the other samples they were presented with. The Deezer song list represents valence and arousal annotations which were artificially created, unlike those manually annotated by the AMG 1608 dataset. Deezer, a French music streaming company, selected roughly 18,000 songs from the Million Song dataset, picking those which they had streaming rights to on their platform. Instead of surveying people like the AMG 1608 dataset, instead, Deezer synthesized annotations from lyrics and Last.fm tags. Last.fm is another music catalog where music is tagged into genres and subgenres by users. Deezer used those tags to predict the valence and arousal of a song. With both a manually annotated dataset and one with predicted tags, we have two unique datasets to benchmark our feature set against. For generating these features, we use 5 separate word list datasets, each containing information about the sentiment of a single word. All of these word lists were manually annotated by human readers in a similar fashion to the manual song annotations for the AMG 1608 dataset. The extended anew dataset is a list of 14,000 words, accompanied with valence, arousal, and dominance ratings. Dominance can be thought of as a third axis to the valence arousal model. Dominance measures how in control or out of control the subject feels about a given word. The multi-perspective question and answering lexicon contains 8,000 words, which are rated by if they have positive, negative, or neutral sentiment. This is very helpful for word filtering. For example, with a comment, we could drop all words with neutral sentiment, retaining those which have known positive or negative sentiment, then measure the valence and arousal of those words as according to one of our other emotive datasets. The 3 other datasets we used in this experiment were generated by the same lab, each measuring different emotive qualities of overlapping subsets of their lexicon. The EmoVAD word list measures valence, arousal, and dominance, similar to extended anew. EmoLex measures the presence of sentiment. Specifically, EmoLex rates words based on if they invoke positive or negative sentiment, as well as fear, anger, disgust, sadness, trust, surprise, anticipation, or joy, which the dataset describes as affects. EmoAff measures these affects as well, but instead of measuring a binary value, whether the affect is present or not, it estimates the intensity of certain affects in a word. We can use these effective norms to infer emotive data about our Reddit comments. As described earlier, we're searching Reddit for comments specific to posts for the song in our included dataset. Once these comments have been aggregated, we can analyze them using our emotive word lists. We can analyze comments using one of 2 methods. The bag of words method is done by putting all the words from all the comments for a given song in the same string and then just masking the list of words with our emotive values for certain words and taking the difference. Our other option is to look at each comment individually, performing sentiment analysis comment by comment, then summating the totals to create a song-level feature. We generate 4 main categories of features with this method. The first is measures of valence, arousal, and dominance, which we can get from both the EmoVAD word list as well as extended anew. We can then look for the presence or intensity of an affect, as described in emo-lex and emo-aff, and we can measure the ratio of positive and negative words to total words in the comments with emo-lex and MPQA sentiment ratings. We can also use positive and negative sentiment ratings to filter our comments before performing sentiment analysis. For the purpose of this experiment, we measure both the valence, arousal, and dominance of all words, as well as the valence, arousal, and dominance of exclusively positive or negative words. Here, we see the results from scraping all comments for songs from the Deezer song list, as well as AMG 1608. We compare the search summaries from both datasets in order to analyze the quirks of each dataset and potentially learn something about our features. Here, we see that Deezer has a greater total number of comments than AMG 1608, as expected with how many more queries there are with Deezer. However, on average, each individual song in AMG 1608 had more Reddit comments related to the song than Deezer did. We notice that both distributions are right-skewed, which makes this sense intuitively. This is potentially explained by the nature of our data source. We have so many songs with little or no conversation on them simply because they weren't of interest to the respective subcommunities on Reddit. However, there are a handful of songs with hundreds or thousands of comments, creating a lot of right-hand outliers. This may be because some posts can go viral for any number of reasons, for example, the death of an artist. Overall, more AMG songs had comments attached to them than Deezer. Only 64% of Deezer songs had at least one comment, whereas AMG has 87% of songs yield an output. Looking at the individual word yield per song tells a similar story as the comment distribution does. Deezer yielded nearly an order of magnitude more words than AMG did. However, on average, each song in AMG had more words than each song in Deezer, indicating possibly that the songs in AMG 1608 are more popularly discussed on Reddit. Our feature generation yielded 880 different features across our 5-word lists. In order to optimize future machine learning tasks, we want to reduce the dimensionality of this feature set. To evaluate how effective different types of features were for the task of predicting music emotion, we use a random forest model and output the 25 features which explain the most variance in our data. Of our 880 features, we noticed 3 categories of features which seem to perform the best in this random forest feature selection. The most prominent features by far were those measuring valence and arousal. Our feature set looked at the average of a sentiment vector, as well as the standard deviation in sentiment across comments. These are both useful types of features, since the average sentiment may tell us if a song matches a specific sentiment, but the variance tells us if different comments had varying sentiment, potentially indicating there was a lot of disagreement about that song. It makes sense that measures of comment valence and arousal will perform well, since our task is to predict the valence and arousal of the song. The second category of features we saw good performance in was features measuring average and variance in valence and arousal, but filtered by positive and negative sentiment words. Given the performance of total valence and arousal measurements we saw before, this should not be surprising. However, it indicates that filtering our comments by known sentiment words did not hurt our predictive performance, and that it could be an effective strategy for reducing noise in our dataset. Finally, we observed that features which measure the intensity of anger specifically had relatively good performance. This behavior in our data is less easily understood. It's possible that anger affect words are more common on Reddit specifically, or that anger, or lack thereof, more accurately measures people's feelings about a song. Because other affects do not have nearly as good a performance for this task, we would need to further study the effect of anger affect on valence and arousal prediction. One of the disadvantages of evaluating feature importance by the random forest model is that it doesn't check for correlated features. It's possible that some of our individual features within the category have high collinearity, meaning that we may be able to reduce the dimensionality of our feature set even further. In the future, more precise feature selection algorithms will need to be used to better tune our data. However, the insight provided by the random forest model about our most important feature types can help shape future feature engineering for this experiment. Our goal with this research was to contribute a framework for generating sentiment features from social media comments for the purpose of predicting music valence and arousal. In the future, these features could be used to predict music emotion and aid in tasks like mood classification. To test the potential for this future work, we designed a simple random forest classification experiment, using songs labeled in 4 moods as defined by the valence arousal quadrant. For example, a calm song is one with positive valence but negative arousal. Using the AMG 1608 song list for our test, we can clearly see that there's some signal in these features. However, there's work to be done in order to deal with the imbalance in our song data sets, as we see here in AMG 1608, as well as to further refine our feature engineering process to improve model performance.